Welcome, everyone, to the Lightworker Ministries Show. This is Kathan. I'm your host tonight. And before we get started, I want to tell you about a little bit about the show that you're tuning into. Lightworker Fellowship is something that I started a while ago. It was just a way for me to kind of connect with people and offer spiritual support. So it started out as a radio show. And it was created to spread the word of hope and give support to others who were spreading their light in the world like me. And what it turned into is a powerful community that shares and cares and supports and inspires. And we've also created a fun and loving group environment where you can receive support between calls and connect with other light bringers like you who are looking forward to getting to know you. So you can go over to the Fellowship Circle group. It's a closed group, but we get you right in. I keep it closed so that people can post freely. And some people have given me feedback because they prefer a safe place to do that. So you have that. Now I want to get talking about tonight's guest because I'm so excited about this. And I got to tell you, usually I have my guests kind of sorted out months in advance. And the universe kept bringing this woman into my mind over and over again. Her blog kept showing up, and her tips were changing my vibration. And I'm like, it's got to be her. So on tonight's show, we are joined by very special guest and one of my favorite co-creators, Jeannette Maw. She's talented, funny, and full of good vibes. We're going to be talking about pray rain journaling, why it's so powerful, and she's going to share her secret sauce for staying positive in a negative world. Jeannette is a master certified coach. She's the founder of Good Vibe Coaching and the Good Vibe blog. She hosts an online gathering at Good Vibe University and is the co-founder of an LOA coach training program and a co-founded LOA-based astrology courses that she offers. She's the author of several Law of Attraction ebooks and is a contributor to Jack Canfield's Life Lessons from Mastering the Law of Attraction. She has been invited to appear on Oprah's Law of Attraction episode to talk about what we're going to be talking tonight and her method that is so powerful, pray, rain, journal. So without any more waiting, welcome, Jeannette. So glad to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me, Stephanie. I'm really excited to play with you tonight and talk about some of my favorite things.
It's so, now you have got a very powerful blog. I'll tell you, I have been signed up to a lot of lists in the past, and now I'm very, very selective. And you are one of the ones that I read all the time, that I'm signed up to and that I constantly read. As soon as it comes out, I read it right away. And I'm like, oh, my God.
Aww.
Every time you have such amazing, powerful tips in there. And one of the things that you talked about recently that I love so much was the whole celebrating all the time, being ready to celebrate and get into that feeling. And we talked about that. I have gone out and gotten a bottle of sparkling grape juice that I keep in my refrigerator now. And you inspired me to do that. And that's a really fun thing because I want to be ready to celebrate. And it totally
does it do the same thing for you? I didn't get champagne and I didn't get sparkling juice, but I did get high-quality premium ice cream. And every time I open the freezer and I have my normal ice cream, but I have my celebration ice cream. And every time I see it, it makes me smile and it puts me kind of in the mood of anticipating good news, which is the intention behind to be ready for a celebration, that you're sending the signal that you're expecting something wonderful to celebrate.
It really does work. It is such a simple, it seems to hear about the process. They're like, that's just too simple to work, but it really, really does. It's a really fun thing.
I agree. Sometimes a lot of things that are super simple are overlooked because we want things to be complicated or we think it has to be hard. But the truth is, the simplest stuff is often the most effective.
It's so true what you're saying. One of the things that I know I've been struggling with lately, and I'm sure some of the listeners have been struggling with this, is how to stay positive. When I read your blogs and I read your posts, I'm like, man, she is just so positive all the time and so dedicated and committed to staying that way. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, I'd say I don't post when I'm not. So I try to lay a little low, and I don't think anyone, I actually don't even think that our goal is to be happy 24/7, but certainly one of the ways that we can experience more happiness in our life is to be willing to feel what isn't, to not resist it, and to be willing to be present to it and process that rather than judge ourselves for it or try to avoid it or dismiss it, ignore it. To be willing to be present to what doesn't feel good is actually, I think, my best strategy for maintaining a good vibration. And that might sound completely contrary, but, what we resist persists. So if I resist feeling bad or having an off day or whatever it might be, I actually just perpetuate it. So to be willing to embrace it, whether it's a bad mood or a bad week, to just really go with it, that's actually, you would be amazed how quickly it passes when you say yes to it. In fact, I'd heard someone describe the reason why happiness seems so fleeting and sadness so enduring is because we don't resist happiness. But we do often resist sadness, and it's in that resistance of it that we draw it out, which isn't something that we do with happiness. We're willing to be present to it because it's enjoyable, it feels good. But if we were willing to do the same thing with some of the emotions that we might not naturally embrace, they would pass just as quickly, and that has been my experience. The more that we are willing to say yes to it and to be present to it, the quicker it moves. It's kind of cool how it works. So I often brag that I could do a bad day like a pro.
You said something really powerful when you started. You said you don't post when you're feeling off.
Yeah.
And I think that is so, that's a thing that gets overlooked a lot, because as soon as we start to feel bad, we want to talk about it, and we want to tell our friends about it, and we want them to validate us for how we're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a habit that I fell into for a really long time, and I've discovered that doesn't serve me at all. And your point in that is when you don't do that, that's when you give yourself permission, kind of, right, to really feel the feelings like you're talking about.
Yep.
But when you're talking about it, it like creates a kink in the well-being.
Yeah, it's not something that we talk about a lot in conscious creation circles, as far as how important it is to be willing to feel bad. But because I think a lot of people just hear the message that we're supposed to be in a state of joy and bliss 24/7, and a lot of people get discouraged right off the bat with that, because I think that's an impossible goal. I believe that when we chose to be here, we came here for the full range of human emotions, not just the top end, and that it really truly is a gift to be able to experience even heartbreak and sadness and some of the other things that we might not think that we would choose on purpose. But yeah, I think it's a lot easier to feel good when you're willing to let yourself feel bad.
That is such a powerful tidbit, and I'm writing that down right now as you speak.
It doesn't make sense. A lot of people think, well, if you're willing to let yourself feel bad, you just get more of that. You know what? It doesn't work that way. We'll get more of what we resist. So, yeah, it's kind of, I really embrace my skills for being able to roll with a bad mood. I'll make the most of it, knowing it's not going to last forever. And even if it is a couple of days, you know what? We know one thing, everything changes. That's the one constant. so it's not like I ever develop a fear that this is going to be my life. And that my experience has been that it does shift pretty quickly when you allow yourself to be present to whatever is.
So you've gone through this amazing journey. You have written a bunch of ebooks. You share with co-creators all the time about manifesting tips and how they can create deliberately in their lives. So I can only imagine what it must have felt like when you got the call from Oprah's people to give you that invitation.
You know what? This is a story that doesn't make a lot of sense to people, but when Oprah's producers called and said they were doing a Law of Attraction special and they were inviting me to be part of it, my first response was, I am positive I've got a client who will be better at this than I would be. Like, I really tried to recommend someone else for the job because I was kind of terrified to be in front of that big of an audience. Like, it was not my highest joy. I get nervous when I speak in front of 50 people, let alone an Oprah-sized audience. And they weren't interested in having someone else. And I thought, well, you don't say no to Oprah, so just do it. And I was terrified, and it was so out of my integrity, to be honest, because one of my core values is authenticity, and they have a very scripted formula there. Like, what they're looking to present to their audience, they have something very particular in mind, and they want you to deliver it. And there is no room for deviation. And also, when they film the day in advance of the show, and when they were asking me to tell my story, they weren't done filming until I was in tears. Like, they wanted emotions. They wanted you to be really, and I'm not a girl who purposely goes to somewhere negative. Like, if I feel bad, I will feel bad, but I don't purposely take myself there. No, they weren't done filming until I was, and I know the power of vibration and amplification of an audience. Like, to have that much attention focused on me feeling bad, like, I just knew that was bad energy. That I had to have that much attention on me feeling good and feeling successful. That's good, but no, they wanted me to be in tears. And then the next day, the whole experience was kind of cool. They did treat me like a rock star. It was very cool, but the day of sitting in the audience, I had to memorize what I was, and I could not deviate from it. And I was so nervous I was going to mess it up. I wrote it on my hand. I mean, I was just terrified. So my Oprah experience, it was not like dream come true material in the least. And I also ended up getting edited out because I was supposed to talk after Martha Beck talked about vision boards. I was supposed to go next to do Pray Rain journals. Martha Beck went overboard on journals, and they skipped me. Or she went overtime on vision boards. So I got edited out, which was probably good because I was just terrified for the whole thing and wasn't really.
That is so funny. Well, funny in the sense that how the universe supported you in that moment.
Oh, right. Well, yeah.
Because you were meaning, I don't really want to feel this way,
this
right?
This doesn't feel right. Yeah, this isn't good. This isn't me. Yeah. The universe said, okay, you don't have to.
Wow. I think that's just kind of cool.
Yeah, I learned a lot about following guidance, and never again will I fall for the routine of, because look, TV production, it's stressful. These are not easy, relaxed, good vibrations. This is high stress. There's a lot of pressure. Time is tremendous scarcity. It was not I didn't find it enjoyable in the least. There are probably other people who really did, but it was not my idea of a good time. So what I learned from that was the next time my guidance says, yeah, this is someone else's party, stick to it. Don't let them convince you otherwise.
Ooh, yeah, that's a really good point. I missed that one altogether. That's so good.
It was a stressful experience, all in all.
So
I wouldn't take
we're
it back.
Going to talk about pray rain journaling. So let's talk about that here. What is it, and why is it so powerful?
Here's the super fabulous thing about the Oprah experience. So after my segment didn't air, I was going back to the airport in a limousine with a couple of other show attendants. A couple of them said, "Hey, we never got to hear your thing. What was it?" And it's not my thing. It's something I got from a local energy worker who I think got it from Greg Braden, but I've heard someone say, no, this is an Abraham method. I don't know where it originated. I didn't come up with it, but I learned it from someone else. And anyway, as I was describing it to a couple of the people in the limousine, I felt they were like, wow, that's so cool. Where can we learn more about it? And there wasn't really any written resource. I think Greg Braden tells a story of praying rain. It's like a one-page story in one of his books. And I didn't know of anything I could tell them to read about the process of pray rain journaling. And on the airplane home, I thought, I sure wish there was a book I could give them about that. And I'd been doing this for years, sharing it with clients. And I realized on the plane, you should write that book. And so I did. I wrote out an outline for the book on the plane. And shortly thereafter, I got a new client whose specialty was internet products, online information, who helped me put it all together. So that was a gift straight from universe. And it really happened because I was sitting there with these people who wanted to hear more about it, and I was just wishing I had a better resource for them. But so here's what pray rain journaling is. First of all, the term pray rain comes from Greg Braden, who talks about practice the Native Americans engaged in pretty regularly. In fact, he had a friend, this was in New Mexico in the 90s. They'd had like a 5-year drought, and his Native American friend asked Greg if he wanted to go with him on, I think he called it like a rain dance. Greg was really excited. He'd never seen one before. And so they drove together out to the middle of nowhere, and then they parked and walked further out to the middle of nowhere in New Mexico until they got to a circle of stones. This was a sacred circle. And his friend took his shoes off and stepped inside the circle, and he closed his eyes, and he said out loud 3 times, all my ancestors are with me now. And then he was silent for a couple of minutes. And then he opened his eyes, and he stepped outside of the circle and said, okay, I'm done, we can go. And Greg was kind of dumbfounded. He was like, what? What was that? I thought there was going to be costumes and singing and chanting. I thought you were going to pray for rain. And his friend laughed at him like it was the most ridiculous thing he ever heard. He said, if I prayed for rain, I wouldn't get rain. Duh, like we should all know this. What I did was I prayed rain. That's such an easy distinction not to catch, the difference between praying for rain and praying rain. What his friend went on to explain was that while he was in the sacred circle, he felt the rain falling all around him. He smelled it in the air. He tasted it on his tongue. He felt it pooling underneath his toes in the dirt. He felt the shoulder-high corn brushing up against him from all the rain that had fallen in the village. He was experiencing rain in the middle of this drought. And sure enough, that night, not only did it rain, but it flooded. And Greg called him and kind of made fun of him. He said, yeah, we've never been really good at controlling how much. But the point of the distinction between praying for rain and praying rain is that when we pray for something, we're acknowledging the lack of it. We're creating an energy that says, we don't have this now. We want this. And in that wanting, there's a lack. It doesn't exist. What his friend was doing was feeling the rain before there was rain, and it brought the rain. So a pray rain journal is where the way I learned it was you get a new journal, and you write a page a day about what you want as if you already had it. And by the time you get to the end of your journal, you'll either have it or it'll be so close you can reach out and touch it. And when I learned this, there was someone in the circle who had shared that she did exactly this for creating her own salon. She was a hairstylist. She wanted to have her own shop, and she pray rain journaled about it. So I had learned it, but I hadn't used it until one day I was in corporate world, and I was in sales, and we had just gotten out of a meeting where basically management had said, if you guys don't turn your numbers around within the next 2 weeks, we're all out of jobs. They're pulling the plug on the whole department. And we'd been under tremendous pressure to try to make things work, and everything they had us doing wasn't working. So after that meeting, I basically felt like I'd just been fired and had nothing else to lose. I went back to my desk and I asked myself, well, what they've been having us do isn't working. What do I want to do? And what came to mind was a Pray Rain journal, which I'd never done before. So I went through my desk and I found a little notebook. It was like 2 inches by 3 inches, teeny weeny, but it was brand new, hadn't been used at all, like 99 cents from Office Max. And I wrote down what I wanted as if it had already happened. What I wrote was something along the lines of, I don't actually have it anymore, Stephanie, because when Oprah's producers asked me to come out, they asked me to bring all my journals. And I did. And it was a really heavy suitcase. And it was quite something to have strangers going through your journals like that. But when I came home, I left my suitcase open. I hadn't unpacked it fast enough, and a cat peed in it, so I had to throw everything away. Anyway, my entry went something like this. Isn't it great how prospects find me, how excited they are to learn about my product, what a perfect match it is for them, what great rapport we have, and how they can't wait for me to implement it. Okay, that was complete fantasy from the reality I was experiencing, where they were having us cold call companies, and I couldn't even get past a secretary to talk to a decision maker if my life depended on it. So what I was writing about was complete, pure fantasy, but it's what I wanted. So I wrote about it as if it was already a done deal. And that's a very different way than most of us journal. You know, most journaling, most of us are taught, it's processing, you know, what our current reality is and focusing more on what is. And in the process of doing that, we get more of the same. But when you write about what you want as if it's already done, you create a whole new instruction for universe. So I wrote up this page, and then I asked myself, okay, what sounds good next? And the answer that came to me was to go to lunch, because I'd been eating out of a vending machine for 4 months on the job. So I left the building, and I went to have a proper lunch. It was my favorite restaurant across the street. And it was a gorgeous spring day, and I sat outside and enjoyed my food and kicked my feet up on an extra chair nearby, and I fed leftover pita bread to the sparrows. I was really goofing off and enjoying myself. And after an hour and a half of that, I was done with that, and I was like, okay, what sounds good next? And the next answer I got surprised me. It said, go back to work. So I did, went back to work in the elevator on the way back up to my office or cubicle. There was a guy in the elevator, and he asked who I was, and I told him my name, and he asked what I did. He said, I know all the bank people. What do you do? And I told him that I sold small business 401k plans, and he was astonished. He said he didn't know that the bank sold small business 401k plans. I said, yeah, we do. And in my mind, I'm thinking, this is part of the reason we can't get these products sold, because here even some upper manager doesn't even know that we even have this product. And he said, you've got to come with me. So I imagine that this is just some bigwig in the bank that's going to make me go explain to him about this new product. And I follow him to his office, but it turns out he doesn't actually work for the bank. In this building, the whole building was bank people, except it wasn't. This guy worked he was the real estate manager for the building. He had to be the only office in the entire building that wasn't bank employees. And he showed me his desk, and it was covered with sales literature from 401k vendors. And he says to me, I haven't been able to make heads or tails of this in weeks. Can you help me? Okay, I could talk about 401k plans all day long if someone gave me a chance to, and here was my big chance. And here's all my competition in front of me. I told him everything he needed to know. I asked him questions about his situation, had a really nice discussion with him. Oh, and I had my satchel with me, so I had my information on my product right in front of me. It was perfect. Had a fabulous discussion for about 15 minutes. And after about 15 minutes, he stood up, and I thought, well, my fun's over. Now I got to go back to work, because it really is fun for me to talk about 401k plans. But instead of walking me to the elevator, he walks me down the hall to his HR director, and he says, Jeanette, meet Shelley. Shelley, meet Jeanette. And he turns to Shelley, and he says, Jeanette's going to be implementing our 401k plan. Sign whatever she needs you to sign. And then he turns to me, and he says, how soon can you have that to us? And I was dumbfounded, Stephanie, because they taught us in training, best case scenario, from the point of identifying a prospect to selling a plan is 6 weeks. And here it just basically happened in we'll call it 2 hours if you count the hour and a half the journal entry, the lunch, and the meeting. And that stuff was a crucial part of why this happened, because I changed focus with that entry in the journal. And then I did what felt good. I followed inner inspiration, and that's how universe put me in the elevator with the guy who needed what I had. He'd been under my nose the whole time, but here I am doing stressful cold calling, reading scripts, not getting any results. And here, when we just practice a little bit of vibration management with the Pray Rain Journal, follow some inspired action, what felt like a miracle was happening. So that was not the promise. When I'd learned about journaling was, by the time you get to the end of your book, it'll be so close you can reach out and touch it, or you'll have it. And here it was before even the end of my day. So I was a big fan, to say the least. And I've done a lot of journals since then.
Amazing.
Yeah, I like that.
Wow.
I like that story.
That must have been like, I got goosebumps with you just telling the story. I can just imagine how it must have felt to see the evidence.
Well, even as it was
for
unfolding, I was like, I didn't even make the connection that, oh, I made this. It wasn't until after the fact I was like, wow, that was cool. What can I journal about
now?
Wow.
I can't believe it's already almost been 30 minutes. I love talking with you and connecting with you, because it's just, the time just seems to evaporate. Like, your energy is just so full of life and vitality. So I am just amazed that in a blink, 30 minutes has gone by. So I want to give the listeners a chance to go and learn more about you. So let's tell them, if you're listening via the replay, if you're not here live, or if you're listening live via the webcast, on the page there you will see a box, and you can click that, and that will take you right to the Good Vibe blog, where you can learn more about Jeanette and what she's offering over there with her blog. You can sign up. I signed up. You'll want to definitely get those emails all the time, because it will make you feel really great. But she always also does some other stuff that I wanted to let you know about. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about Good Vibe You and what that is, and how people can engage with you there?
Yeah. So I had been doing a variety of group coaching courses that would last, 4 or 5 weeks, and after each one, the feedback I was getting from everyone was, oh, we don't want the party to end, and I felt the exact same way. So I created a gathering where the party doesn't end, where fellow creators, people who are committed to enhancing their manifesting skills and learning how to create what they want, that's what we do there. There are a variety of calls in the library on different topics. There are courses that get emailed. There are forums where people get to share, celebrate, support each other, share resources and tips. And in general, it's my idea of a good time. I get to hang out with like-minded creators, and that's something that was missing from my world for a long time. When I first ran across Law of Attraction material, I didn't know anyone I could talk to about it, and it really felt like a hamper on my own practice. So to be able to, Jim Rohn says you are who you hang out with. When you hang out with powerful creators, it amps up your own game. So that's what we're doing at Good Vibe University.
And where can they go to learn more about that? Do you have a website?
Yep, goodvibeu.com or goodvibeuniversity.com will take you there. You don't have to be a member in order to have access to a variety of resources, but the forums, the emailed courses, the archived calls are all available. When you become a member, anyone can do a trial membership for $1 for 3 weeks. But there is also a calendar there where you can see the upcoming live calls, and everyone is invited to join us for our live calls. So the call details are right there on the calendar for anyone who wants to join us at goodvibeu.com.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I've got this huge smile on my face, and I just feel like it's going to be one of those ones that lasts all night. And I want to thank you for that, because you have.
Well, I hope we get to play again, because you're right. That half hour went way too fast.
It did. And I can't wait to come over and tune into your calls over at Good Vibe U. I'm really, really excited about that. Listeners, please tune into Jeanette. She is one of the most fun-loving, good vibe broadcasting people I know, and you will not be sorry for tuning into her frequency. Jeannette Maw has been our special guest tonight. I'm your host, Kathan. You've been listening to the Lightworker Ministries Show. And please feel free to head on over to the Good Vibe blog and get some good vibes going over there. Check out Good Vibe You. Go on over to the Facebook group and connect with some like-minded folks who want to get to know you. And I will see you next month on the next live broadcast of the Lightworker Ministries Show. Bye-bye, everybody.